I really want to have like the steroid conversation to like hear like you and Ashton both bounce off like why you make the choices that you make and sort of the risk you see and the consequences and like, but like sort of why you think it's worth it and all that stuff. I think that'd be really like enlightening. Cause I know sometimes, people get in like the drug conversation. It's just kind of like, ad hominem back and forth versus like really having a productive discussion about it and really thinking it through.
Yeah, that's always been so foolish to me.
I think the three of us can have a very productive, probably very insightful conversation about that stuff.
Yeah, because I definitely like if I find out someone is a beginner and they're getting on stuff or like they haven't really thought it through before they're getting on it, like I get on their case very fast. But like people who they've lifted for a long time and they've thought like deeply about it and they're aware, they've got all the information and then they make the decision. It's like, that's fine by me. Yeah, I see a lot of people get on it irresponsibly. Like there was a high schooler in the gym the other day talking about how regular like nutrition stuff doesn't work for him. He's gonna have to get on Tren to lose weight. And I'm just like, oh my God, like what's going on here? Brother, and I'm like, dude, you're in high school, you're still a minor. And but yeah, I think being able to like think that stuff through, especially like Shane, for you, like what you think the qualifications need to be before someone could even consider getting on them.
Yeah, I think my opinion on all of that honestly would surprise people because I know there's some, I know there's some honestly like tested lifters that are really harsh towards that kind of stuff. I don't really know why. I mean, we'll save this conversation for that video, but I'll just kind of, my whole thing is if you've been, training for a certain period of time, if you are interested in taking things to the next level and you want to just see how absolutely strong, you can get and you're willing to do what it takes, to get there, it's fine by me. Compete with other untested lifters. Like it's really that simple. That's really sort of the only time I ever have an issue with anybody using anything is if they're competing like if they're competing in a tested federation that tests, but they try to work around that testing process, which I honestly don't think happens nearly as often as some people would claim, especially among top level lifters. I do think like it's only been a minor problem, I think, at some local level stuff, but I don't think there's a lot of people at like nationals that are just blasting shit and showing up. And, like, I don't think any of that really happens that often, but that's the only thing, like in terms of like ethics or morals I can think of, is if like you are willingly, or if you're knowingly using, whatever, substances and then compete, tested and try to win tested and do stuff like, so that's kind of how I feel about that. I feel like really young and you're trying to get into that stuff. I'm like, just slow down and maybe talk to someone, who is, knowledgeable about it and more knowledgeable than myself about it. And, just see what their perspective is before you jump into something like that, especially really young. And especially if you're just getting a bunch of shit and you don't know what you're doing, then there's of course like the health implications too, because, and Shane, you probably can know like more about this than I would be, but I imagine there's like a balance in terms of like maintaining good health and like healthy hormone levels and stuff like that. And if you're going to do it, then try to do it as safely as possible.
Absolutely. I think to a degree, like you were saying, the younger generation, I think the whole like TikTok generation definitely desensitizes people to like how severe it is, because it's not something like you both said, it's not something to be taken lightly. It's a big decision. And I think people on TikTok, it's obviously like mostly jokes and people just like throw the words around like Tren is like, to say Tren is like now is like these, like everyone knows what it is. Like 15-year-old kids say Tren, they don't really know what it is, but it's like the steroid, right? And it's like, it didn't used to be like that. Now there's like a surge of newer people in lifting, which brings in just a surge of all these other like kind of tertiary people as well. And obviously the fitness industry and the bodybuilding, powerlifting, all of it. But I do think that it has become a lot more talked about and to a degree desensitized with that. People don't take it as seriously as they should. Absolutely, it's one of the bigger decisions I think a lot of people would make in their life if they knew the gravity of it. They wouldn't take it so lightly. But I think a lot of people do think it's casual. They're like, oh, I'll just do 8 weeks of this and I'll be
I'll be God.
And it's so short-sighted. They aren't thinking long term. And when you're 16, 17, 18, I don't think you even can really think in the long term. You know, like long term is a week for you at that age.
Yeah.
So you can't really consider what you're going to want in 10 years. Destroy your hormones and your endocrine system at a young age, and you potentially never recover. You're making decisions that could impact you for your whole life. Fertility, I mean,
fertility, having a
goes
family.
on and on. Yeah. A lot of 16-year-old kids aren't thinking about if they want to have kids in 16, when they're 32, when they're, they aren't thinking about that. So I think it has a lot of weight to it. People should definitely weigh that, heavily.
Be informed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, they should have been lifting for quite a while too. Have a huge base already built.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be fun to talk about.